Welcome back, everybody. This is Tableau for FIRST Robotics video course presented by FRC Team 2834. Today's video 9, Discrete versus Continuous Data and Trend Lines. Let's get started. So what is discrete and what is continuous data? Discrete data has a discontinuous domain. So, for example, the match number dimension that we've been working with is discrete since there can be a match number 1, a match number 2, a match number 3, a match number 4, but there can't be a match number 1.5 or 2.25. We can only use the whole numbers in that domain and not everything in between, which means that it is discontinuous and discrete. So what is continuous? Continuous has a continuous domain. So, for example, a measure that could be any value from 1 to 20, including decimals, is continuous. Now, all the measures we've worked with are seen as continuous by Tableau. Obviously, a team can't score 1.5 power cells, but Tableau automatically sees those measures as continuous. So, by definition, those measures are supposed to be discrete because you can't score a decimal amount or a fractional amount of power cells or even points in a match. But Tableau is just seeing that it could have decimals. It's just Tableau's way of classifying it, and those measures are seen as continuous. In general, when Tableau is sorting, it will make all the dimensions discrete and all the measures continuous. So let's move over to Tableau and let's look at these. So we're going to make some trend lines today, and that involves discrete and continuous data. So I'm going to make a new chart, and I'm going to call it trend lines. Could be 2 words or 1 word. I don't think it really matters. So what we want to get here is we want the auto outer port scoring by each match, but we want to see points, and we want to see a trend line to see if a team is trending up or down. Now, there's a difference between a trend line and a line graph. So let's make a line graph just to see about that. So we have team number and auto outer port scoring. Now, I want to sort this by match. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag our match number dimension into columns. So now I can see each team in the column, but also I can see subdivisions by each match because I dragged both team number and match number into the columns bar up here. So instead of a bar graph, let's go to the drop down and let's say I want a line graph. This is a line graph. I only have 2 matches in my data, so my trend line is going to look exactly like this. But if I had more matches, this line would be going up and down and up and down and up and down again, kind of like it's shown in this image over here. And that is not a trend line. That is a line graph. Trend lines are always 100% straight 180 degrees. So let's see how we can make some trend lines. I'm going to turn this graph into, instead, a dot graph with some circles. And that's how you're going to want to use your trend lines. You're going to want dots. I'm going to actually make them a bit smaller, easier to see. So when you're working with trend lines, think back to your math class in middle school, you put a bunch of dots on the chart and then you draw a line of best fit. That's basically all Tableau is doing, and we want to use dots for that. So to make a trend line, we're going to go to Analysis, Trend Lines, Show Trend Lines. Oh, wait a minute. A trend line cannot be computed. Typically, each axis should be either a number or a date. Refer to help for more information. Now, typically each axis should be a number or a date. It doesn't really mean anything. The reason you're getting this error is because trend lines only work if the x-axis it's being drawn on is continuous. And what is our x-axis here? Match number. Match number is not continuous. If we right-click or click on this arrow on match number, we can see it is discrete and not continuous. We've got a dot highlighting discrete. And we discussed earlier why match number is not continuous. So in order to successfully get a trend line, we're going to need to change it to continuous. So we're going to click on continuous, and that's going to turn the pill green. So kind of like I said earlier, dimensions are almost always discrete and measures are almost always continuous. It's kind of treating match number as a measure in this case. So now we have our dots. They got a little smaller. I'm going to make them a bit bigger. So now we have our dots, and now let's try making that trend line again. We're going to go to Analysis, Trend, and Show Trend Lines. There we go. Now we have our trend line. So we had to make match number continuous. Now we didn't have to make team number continuous, and here's why. Because we're making a trend line for each team number. So 9988 has one, 9989, and every other team number has its own trend line. The real so really what we're doing by putting 2 dimensions in this upper table here is we're making a bunch of smaller divided graphs that have match number in the x-axis and auto outer port scoring in the y-axis, but we're making a bunch of smaller graphs and we're just putting them side by side, and what defines each graph as a smaller graph is its team number. We're dividing it by team number. So that's how we draw a trend line. If we had more data here, the dots wouldn't be both connected by the line. Not all of your data will be touching the line. The trend line is just the line of best fit to try and model that data in an equation. So what we can say from this graph is this team's scoring has been going up, but this team's scoring has been going down, and this team's scoring has been staying the same. And this team's scoring has been going up slower than this team's scoring has been going up. Now, something that I never mentioned earlier is you can see that 0 was added to this axis somehow, and 3, but 0 and 3, we only have 2 matches in our data set, and there's no match 0. So we're going to edit our axes, and to do that, we go to our axis, and we get this green box. We're going to right-click, Edit Axis, and it does automatically, it does an automatic axis. So based on your data, it'll try to get your axis to be a certain width and height. But we're going to do fixed, and then we're going to enter our start and end point. So say I want to go from match 1 to match 2. There's no save button, you just hit X. There we go. Now all of my x-axes have gone from 1 to 2. And I can do the same thing on my y-axis. I can edit axis, fixed. Let's say I want to go from 0 to 12. I can hit X. Now my y-axis is measured from 0 to 12. And this same rule applies for other graphs. So when you have multiple graphs side by side, and you're trying to compare the heights of their bars, let's say, you have multiple bar graphs side by side, you're not going to want the scale on one of your axes to be 0 to 20 and the scale of your other axis to be 0 to 5, because then your comparison just isn't going to be right. You want both of your axes to be the same. So say I want this one to go from 0 to 20, I'm going to right-click, Edit Axis, Fixed, 0 to 20. And there we go. So I highly recommend that you use fixed axes in all of your charts rather than the automatic feature, because Tableau can do some very messy things with that. Alright, so that's the basics of discrete and continuous data, trend lines, and editing your axes. We'll see you next time.